Okay. All right. So settling back into your meditation posture. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze and let the body settle, coming into stillness, releasing the shoulders, relaxing the jaw, softening the belly. When we are able to hold the body still, we naturally feel more of what's going on in the body. Just feeling the body as a kind of field of energy, of life. Just try sort of moving your attention either up or down your body, just fairly quickly, kind of checking into different areas and feeling the variety of sensations. It can be really quite striking to see how many different sensations there are in the body at any given moment. And even when we try to be still, we notice that the breath keeps moving in the body. So just feeling the chest and belly rising and falling. Or you can tune into the breath at the nostrils, the touch of air coming in and out. And noticing when the mind wanders, when you lose awareness of the breath, and gently returning. we start to become aware of the contrast between the mind that is caught in verbal thoughts or images and the mind that is connected with the felt experience of the body, of the breath, felt experience of mood, of energy. Even thoughts have a feeling component. And when we're able to stay on this level, this felt level, the somatic level, then we are present. We're more fully here. The verbalizing in the mind creates a kind of split between the mindful presence, awareness, separates us from this reality, puts us into this mind created world. And that world has many functions, many values, but it is essentially stepping out of the present moment. We live much of our lives in that mind created world. And as we become more attuned to mindfulness, to the felt experience of the present moment, we start to see the limitations of that mind or thought created world. It is a world of desire, of seeking. It's inherently unsatisfied as it tries to solve problems or make plans, reinforce judgments, explain. And when we wake up from that world in that very moment, we can feel what the Buddha calls dukkha, that sense of unsatisfactoriness that's created through this thought world, this yearning for things to be different from the way they are. Our effort is not to push away thoughts or the thought world, but rather to turn toward and become absorbed in the experience, felt experience of life, of breath. That felt experience can make us feel vulnerable at times, the tenderness of being alive, being human. But even in that tenderness, we can feel the richness of life, of presence. Hmm. So welcome again, and we have been going through my book, One Breath at a Time, Buddhism and the 12 Steps, slowly but surely. And we are in step 10 in a section called um, appreciation. And so step 10 says we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So it's following the steps 4 through 9, where the inventory and the amends process, obviously reinforcing this idea that we should keep looking at this question of any harm we're doing. And I guess I, as I tend to do, I take some liberties with the steps, and kind of I'll just use certain concepts to sort of jump off into topics that I want to talk about. So the section starts with me uh, talking about um, a woman who was, as I said, well, I'll read it. Recently, a friend, Anne, who was a longtime meditator and new mother, came to talk to me about the frustration she felt with their meditation practice. She said that when she was able to find the time to meditate at all, she would either fall asleep or spend the whole time thinking, seemingly never remembering to follow her breath or be present or be in the present. Did I have any suggestions for how to get her practice back? And this, you know, it was very striking and like one of those uh, situations where that I think we can get into, where we sort of have this idea of how meditation should be, and we're used to it being a certain way. You know, we've been on retreats, or we've been practicing regularly, but when you have a baby that's waking you up twice a night, uh, you're not going to have the same experience. And so, I talked to her about that, and that rather than trying to kind of recapture something that she thought was like her concept of how meditation should be, rather to look at what's happening, what opportunities are there for spiritual practice, and this uh, comes back then to keeping a broad view about our practice, not having it be just about stopping thinking, or being really peaceful. Um, and so I go on and tell the little story about when I became a father, and I'll read some of that. Um, um, a few weeks after my daughter was born, my wife and I were invited to meet a Thai monk named Ajahn Jumnian. We gathered with a small group in a friend's living room. Ajahn Jumnian, a jolly round figure whose English is limited to a few words, happy, happy, apparently being his favorite, sat in an easy chair in the corner while a translator sat at his feet. When Ajahn Jumnian saw that my wife was carrying a baby in a sling around her neck, he gestured for us to come forward. Smiling and waving a kind of wand, he repeated, happy, happy, then started to speak in Thai. He says, metta is mother love, the translator told us, referring to the Buddhist word for loving kindness. He says, without metta, mother love, the human race would not survive. this simple insight struck me. Since our daughter had been born, I'd been feeling this love. I hadn't thought of it as metta or as mother love, but those were good words for it. It was a feeling beyond any love I'd ever felt, beyond what I felt for my wife or my own mother. It was a force of nature, of survival, as Ajahn Jumnian had pointed out. Even though I'd been practicing meditation for many years and had very rich experiences with the loving kindness meditation, I'd never known anything like this feeling. So this is what I told Anne, who's the woman that I mentioned before, the new mother. The path is broad and involves many aspects. Sometimes we are focused on developing concentration or investigation or some other quality. New parents have to work hard at cultivating and maintaining a lot of spiritual qualities: patience, generosity, renunciation, as they give up so much of their freedom and time. But the gift that they receive is love, as well as what's called mudita, or appreciative joy. There's no work involved, no effort in developing metta and mudita for our children. They just blossom. Appreciating that this is happening for us can help us to be easier on ourselves when other aspects of our practice seem to be crumbling. Sometimes we have to focus our attention on a career transition, right livelihood, or perhaps we're trying to improve our communication skills, right speech. Other times we are drawn to study of the Dharma, trying to grow in right view and right intention. Perhaps our faith is blossoming as we work with a teacher, or our understanding of suffering is deepening as we sit with a dying parent. There are many ways that we grow in the Dharma, that our spiritual life ripens. We can use step 10 as a reminder to pay attention to what is happening now in our practice. Practice doesn't just mean the time we spend sitting on a cushion. Practice is life. Life is practice. Many times it's possible to see that there is already natural growth happening. We just have to appreciate it. Other times we'll see that some work needs to be done, that some struggle in our lives is pointing to a place that needs work. The investigation of our spiritual condition on a regular basis is our guide. So that's kind of, the way I try to kind of bring in this idea of step 10 as not just about, you know, continuing to make personal inventory, but to kind of track and ask ourselves where we are in our practice and our path. I've started using the term the seasons of our lives or seasons of our practice. I think there's a corny song with a title like that, but in any case, it it very much seems like that, and I think there's this tendency to always you sort of want it to be a different season. It's like it's too hot. I wish it was fall. Oh, it's too rainy. I wish it was summer. It's too cold. When is spring going to come? And in the same way, in our practice, maybe we get this idea that something else should be happening. You know that we ought to be, having more feeling of love or more feeling of concentration, or that we should be more skillful, in some way. And so I do think this idea of appreciating what is happening right now and where we are uh, is a more helpful way to think about our practice. Um, and that doesn't mean that we give up making effort. Um, Certainly, I think it's always wise to be making an effort to to maintain mindfulness, to maintain concentration, to cultivate loving kindness, to cultivate compassion. But we also need to, you know, have have partner that effort with self-compassion, self-forgiveness. It doesn't do us any good to sort of stay on this cycle of striving, you know. So, again, I mean, this is I talk about this so much, I think, because it is to me at the heart of our practice, this paradox of effort. The fact that effort itself is paradoxical, that if if suffering is caused by craving and we're making an effort, isn't that effort inevitably driven by craving? Isn't an effort to get something or to get rid of something for to make things different? So how can that not be creating suffering? So that's the question you have to answer for yourself. You know, and it's not an essay question. It's a felt experience. I was, I know it's, well, I think I apologize many of the times that I bring up golf, but I am seriously now thinking about I'm gonna do a book on mindfulness of golf, mindfulness with golf. But yesterday I was playing, as I will do, and I noticed these 2 kinds of mental states when I was playing. One is when I'm literally talking to myself, and, I'm on the green and I'm saying, "Oh, that there's that undulation there, the ball's gonna break to the left." And then there's this other mental state, which is that I just look, and I can just by seeing, there's no words in my mind about it. There's just seeing and there's sensing what's gonna happen to the ball. And guess which way is effective, right? Because I actually am a very good putter, and and I see people all the time overthinking what they're doing, like walking all around and staring at all these things and making all these calculations. And most of the time, I just look for a moment, and I stand over it. Uh, and it's that felt experience that is so informative. There is so much information in the felt experience if we can tune into it. But we're so habituated into thinking things out and figuring things out. Well, what's the right kind of effort to make in my meditation? What do I need to be doing? Let me go back and check that book on right effort. What did they say you were supposed to do? And that doesn't tell you anything because it's not an idea. There isn't such a thing as right effort that's uh, dependably one thing. It's always dependent upon the present moment and all the variables and conditioning that bring into this present moment. That you're a new mother, or that you just got fired from your job, or that you're really excited, about your vacation. And all of that stuff is the energy and the felt experience of this present moment that's, conditioning your mental state. And so that mental state, then you can only know it. It doesn't do you any good to say, "Oh, my mental state right now is disturbed by blah, blah, blah. I think that I probably should do this." No, you're still just out here, You're just, like, meditating out here. You have to get in here and feel it, and then you connect and you feel, "Oh, wow, there's all this anxiety," or there's actually, like, a place of calm in me, or, "Oh, I feel very tender," or kind of, that conversation I had today really opened up my heart," or, whatever is there. And then you respond to that, "Oh," and you feel, you just feel, what does that call for? And yeah, maybe sometimes there is some sort of element of sort of bringing in the cognitive thought process of like, "Oh, what would be good?" But it's much more about, like, listening, feeling, and responding intuitively, and there doesn't have to be any, like, going back to the book on mindfulness to see what the step is that you're supposed to do. And this is very, I mean, I think it's, I guess, I don't know exactly how to characterize it, but what I certainly know, this kind of thinking is certainly very much associated with kind of Western I could even say patriarchal or hierarchical or, uh, you know, and and some of you guys might probably have better words for it, but this kind of thinking that's uh, this idea that we can solve everything through our thinking it out, figuring out the answer. Um, I was just really struck over the last few days when that heartbreaking testimony from the police, Capitol Hill police officers, and how evocative it was, and that this right-wing response was attacking them for having emotions. I thought, "Oh, right. There's this whole thing about there's this fear of emotions." It's very kind of, 1950s sorta, that like, "Oh, if you have feelings, there's something wrong with you." And, Simone Biles, because she's, like, admitting that, like, she's really in a difficult place. "Oh, that's weak." It's like, whereas from my viewpoint, and I think from the viewpoint of people who are, you know, tuned in this way, this is wisdom, and this is strength, this is power, this is tremendous power to be able to be present and to see people who not only don't feel their feelings, but don't think they should feel their feelings. Like, "Oh, wow, you're really kinda, like, deciding that being alive really isn't worth it." Like, because feeling is the essence of life. What do you think life is? A bunch of thoughts? It isn't, you know? Life is feeling, a and so this is our work, is to how can I step out of that blah, 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 and just step into the feeling realm, and I understand why people are afraid of feeling. It's feelings are scary. They're not in control, I mean, this is the other illusion, right? That we have this illusion that our minds control things, and that when we think about something and solve something or figure something out, that we're somehow in control, you know, but we're not, you know? And we people go through their lives, like, skidding along the surface of life with this sort of idea that they're kind of running the show until, reality breaks through as it eventually does, um, hopefully earlier rather than later. And for people in recovery, feelings are, this is kind of the whole show, right? Because why were we using? Because either we couldn't handle the way we felt, or we just really liked to feel this other way, and we wanted to make sure that was what was happening all the time. So there was this uh, always this remove from the reality of what we were feeling, and this effort to fix it and control it, or suppress it. So, we come into sobriety, and no wonder most people relapse, I mean, they're not necessarily, forever, but most people who get sober for the first time do not make it in the first time. Most of them relapse. And I would say, I don't know, haven't read the research, but it seems to me, good guess, that the reason they relapse is because all of a sudden, after 10, 20, 30 years of suppressing or eliminating feelings, it's all just there, naked, right? Oh, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? So it seems to me that kind of a core element of recovery is maybe the most important thing about recovery is learning to hold our feelings, to live with our feelings, to surf our feelings, to embrace our feelings, to transform our feelings, all of that. And that's the heroic journey there. That is the heroic path. Uh, most I don't know, a lot of people anyway run from it. Um, so this idea of just like coming back to right effort in our meditation practice, again, not like, oh, what should I do? What I should figure this out? No, just like, can you just be with what's happening? Can you just feel this and just see what intuitively arises as a skillful response to this moment. Um, and even a way, even uh, an appreciation of this moment, even when it's not comfortable. It's quite remarkable that it's possible to absorb into a seemingly uncomfortable feeling and discover that the absorption actually changes the experience of it. This is the power of concentration, actually, which I should probably talk about on Tuesday. That it's not just that, oh, your mind gets quiet or that or that the feelings go away, but rather that the absorption itself transforms the nature of the feelings. So I can tell when when I'm absorbed in teaching, because I start to talk faster and I get excited, and then I can feel that, and I can feel all the energy coming through, and that's when I feel like I'm really teaching, because it's hard for me to teach like normally, like which meaning that it's hard for me to teach out of my head, which is why my teaching rarely is you know linear. Anyway, there you go. That's tonight's transmission from uh, Vincenti Avenue in Berkeley, California. And I love the tail of the cat there, just like wagging in the screen. Yes, that was a good Dharma talk.
I think Gail wants to speak.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gail.
There is a cat there. Thank you very much for that. I've been reading all about I've been reading several books about the Eightfold Path, and I started with Bhikkhu Buddhist because you had been mentioning it here a couple of times, and I thought it was a great place to start. And when I get to the one about right effort, of course I can't spell it out for us, but what's been really helpful for me right now is to remind me, don't give up. There's got to be some effort in it. And, and I have these like two like rules about, in meditating, don't give up and don't move. And if I can just abide by those two rules, I can get through it. But, I haven't been putting the effort in it. I've been moving all around and I've been, my mind is like, yeah, sort of like just going with the waves. And I haven't been putting enough effort in it. And I'm recognizing it and I'm realizing these books are helping me, just look at what's really important, and there are some things, like that, but there has to be more effort than what I have been willing to do, and look at why is that,
Yeah. Yeah. And I, thank you for kind of balancing what I was saying, because it's true that it is really helpful sometimes that like one idea or a couple. Oh, right, okay, that, uh, and sitting still is really one of the simple and very effective forms of right effort, and sometimes that's not possible, or you're just too restless, and so there, I always want to keep that sort of sense of self-compassion there when that's not happening. Because it's like, oh, that was frustrating. I just had to sit where I was really restless. I couldn't sit still, and my mind was wandering. And then it's like, what do I do with that? Can I just go, okay, put that information, let me, tuck away that piece of information because that's like helpful, right? I need to try to stay still. And that meditation is over and I can't do anything about it. So it doesn't do me any good to beat myself up about it. It's just like, what did I learn in that sit, right? What did I learn that I can apply next time? It's just like when you hit a bad shot, you go, oh, what did I do? I can't fix that shot, but I cannot repeat that. See? Golf is life. Life is golf. It's just, sorry. I mean, pretty soon I'm not going to have anybody left on these calls. I'm going to be like, okay, never mind.
Hi, Kevin.
Angela?
Well, I was speaking of golf. Remember I told you I got my mom Zen Golf, the book, and asked you if you had, but
yeah.
she brought it on vacation with her this week.
Did you read it?
I didn't read it, but
Why not?
she's down in Palm Springs playing golf. So I'm going to ask her if she, read some of it. Thank you so much. I know when I'm really into your talk, when I start literally like transcribing it as you're speaking, because I just like I started with life is feeling, and then I just like everything you were saying was, and even during the meditation, you said something about, I think it was one of the last things you said about life. I'm going to have to go back to it, but yeah, I guess there's just so many things I'm thinking about, but because what just came to me too is something you said, or we talked about before, like finding the sacred in the mundane, or, the subtlety, when we pay attention. And even in our book study yesterday, Dana brought up one of your good oldie quotes, oldie but a goodie, what you open to settles. Isn't that what it was? I think, Dana, that you brought up yesterday. And the right effort, Gregory Kramer he was talking about in one of his workshops, our entryway into the Eightfold Path, like how do we want to enter into the practice, and I was thinking about right effort because, as you know, I expend a lot of effort, and especially in recovery and showing up. Like one of the first things I thought about as you started talking was like intention of like how I show up, even to my meditation or to class, or, of course I'm helping, but like I'm also here first and I help because I just, love to support the community or whatever. It helps me in a lot of ways too, just to have a commitment to come. Cause like I was telling Dana, I just wanted to watch pizza or eat pizza and watch the Olympics. And, but I'm like, obviously so glad that I'm here, cause it was so helpful. Just and bringing in self-compassion. And I feel like so many other things that you said were just really helpful reminders for me. Because I also was telling you about the work I'm doing. Yeah, just the reminder of like the body, like something else that came up that I often think about what you said in the beginning of a meditation. There's no story in the breath, or like the wisdom of the body and how radical it is to, one of the books that Anne got from your book giveaway was all these talks by nuns. And I was reading to her on the way home from your house, and, the nun was talking about like walking into the discomfort, and being with it. And I was relating to like our recovery, and I was just like, wow, like it's so incredibly powerful to like, feel our feelings and like not only feel them, but like sit with them, and like keep going, and go further into the fire. Like Anne was like, walking into the fire, and then the last thing, and then I'll be quiet, but like the integrating, my therapist today was talking about integrating, this work I'm doing, like somatic therapy, like listening to my body, and like for the first time in my life, and it's like extremely powerful work to just like be like, like my body has things to say, and to be gentle. And like you said, like, I'm just so glad you're reminding too of compassion and just allowing of like, and letting it integrate. And really, because it's like such a process, so anyway, I'm just so grateful for tonight and for you to just, yeah, like, I just love it. I love this. Thank you for what you do, Kevin.
Thanks, Angela. That's great. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for what you said. I'm just would like to see if what I understood is what you were in fact saying,
Mm-hmm.
because I think I missed something somewhere along. So, yeah, your talks are so dense, that you try and put it all together, and somehow writing doesn't help because you're not listening when you're writing and all that.
Right.
But anyway, I have here that I really liked when you started off about putting effort into something has to do with the something being of desire. And that's kind of, in a
Right.
way, catch-22. But then
Right.
I wrote down here, let's see, effort hopefully and skillfully is being mindful of our intuition, feelings, listening and seeing what is there. The effort is not necessarily solving a problem with thought or an analysis, but responding to what is there. And like Angela was saying too, is that your body will tell you everything that is true. So please.
Yeah. It's that not trying to solve everything just with thoughts and just with your mind. And that doesn't mean that you don't think or that you don't bring in your mind, but you have to, it's kind of like you hold both or you move between the two. So, because your body will kind of tell you if you're on the right track, if the effort you're making is skillful, really. I mean, in terms of meditation, your body will tell you. And when I say body, I mean the felt experience, not just like it's it's the emotional body that's in the physical body. So as you're meditating, I mean, this is an instruction I often give. When you're meditating and you notice your mind has wandered, just when you come back to the breath, as you're coming back, check in with how that feels, what emotion or and felt experience in the body was triggered by the thought. Okay. So that then tunes you in to it connects you then with between thought and feeling. And you start to make that like an ongoing sort of body of, or that's the wrong word because we're talking about body, ongoing sort of realm of awareness where thoughts and feelings or thought or mind and body aren't sort of, you're not holding them separate, but you're kind of holding them together. Like, oh, that thought, ooh, I felt that thought, right?
Mm.
And then you start to be like, oh, I must be in craving because this feels like not enough, or I must be in resentment because this feels like anger, and you start to see that, I must be in projection because this feels like fear, so it's like this really, I think integrating is a good term that Angela is using. It's not so much just being in the felt experience. There is this element of the mind, like checking it out and kind of, but kind of seeing that connection. And then, yeah, there are moments when you go, no, wait, what would be a wise way? Like what's happening right now is a lot of anger toward myself. Like I'm beating myself up. Oh, maybe I should try to do some self-compassion. But then, okay, what's self-compassion? Well, to me, self-compassion is not words. I mean, you can use words, but it's a felt experience. Again, it's like I go, oh, I really need some softness. I need to be a little more gentle internally. I can feel the tension. I can feel the irritation. oh, I need to breathe into that and soften around that. And then it's back into the felt experience and trying to release it on that somatic or visceral level.
Okay, so it pretty much is, kind of coming into getting out of, let's see. So your head is, you said, the integration of the felt experience with what your mind is noticing. So then when you notice, you acknowledge or be mindful of what your mind is telling you, and you say, and you start asking those questions about how do I come back to or accepting um, uh, the feelings that are there and what's present in um, what's going on. And okay, I just got confused.
Well, okay. For me, the simple thing is whatever's going on in my head, let me come into my body and see how it feels. And trust that if I'm with that, it's like the answers will come if your own house is in order. The answers will come if I feel the experience, if I'm present. I don't have to solve it all with my mind. Just like, oh, I'm getting caught in stuff in my head. Oh, just breathe. I mean, when people say just breathe, they don't just mean breathe. They mean come into your body and be present with what's going on. Go check in with the felt experience. Because that's the level that you can release on. You breathe into that, you relax, and then there's a natural letting go that happens, uh, like a physical release that has sort of an emotional release with it. Ah, okay, softening. And then that naturally softens the mind, and you don't have to go and, solve the mind's problems. The mind's problems are sort of solved through the body in that way.
Thank you.
Okay. Dan, so nice to see you.
Hey, thanks. It's nice to see you too. Yeah, so I really, really like this topic tonight. And when you were using the example of being on the golf course and the difference between those two states of like thinking about it and like literally talking it out versus just kind of like seeing it, it felt really like that just really resonated with me in a lot of ways, but also kind of like I guess the other thing for it to me tonight is I guess just the process of thinking. And sometimes I feel like I personally am just like this machine that's just problem solving. Like that's what I'm doing all day. It's just and sometimes it just like I feel like it legitimately feels like a waste of time. And so a very real example is I just got back from visiting my dad in Northeast Ohio, which that place is basically like the inverse of the Bay Area in a lot of ways.
Right.
And so I really struggle kind of being there, but also my dad, who actually has to live there, struggles with it too. And so he's talking about the challenges of having his own beliefs about how things should be, vaccines and politics and all that, and but having to live in an area where he's very much alone in that sense. And but when he's sharing all this with me, and pretty much the whole time I'm there, I'm just stuck in this problem solving mode, trying to figure it out, trying to think like, well, what's wrong with this? If only I could just like, if people could just reason in this or that way, it would be fine. But and for me, I know like that sort of thinking in and of itself, like to me, it kind of has its own answer, because I believe that the answer lies essentially somewhere in like the realm of acceptance.
Yeah.
But the other thing that kind of hit me tonight when I was thinking about it is that when my dad or anybody shares something like that with me and I immediately go into problem solving mode, I feel like that's when I immediately stop being actually present. I stop being present with my dad and thinking about him, his feelings, and all of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because the problem solving comes out of aversion, right? It's, I don't want it to be this way. How can I make it different? And instead of being with, bringing compassion to your father and kindness to your father. I mean, I see that with my wife, that I do it with her and she does it with me too. Like, your partner, you share something, and instead of them just like, oh, that's really hard, they're like, oh, why don't you do this? And it's like, oh, actually, I wasn't asking for guidance, life guidance. Thank you. Uh, and sometimes it's great, and there's nothing wrong with helping people, with their problems and making suggestions. But as you say, like when that's the auto response, it's very much coming out of our own discomfort with someone else's pain, with being around someone's pain. And that if we can help them to get rid of their pain, then we don't have to feel it anymore. And that is, yeah, we have now covered the Codependence Anonymous meeting part of the session tonight.
Can I just
Yeah.
say one more thing though about that?
Go ahead, Angela.
I know it's 8:10.
Oh my God.
I
Rosemary and I
know,
have to start watching TV very soon.
I know, I know.
Otherwise, we'll be up too late.
But I also, because I've been thinking about that for myself, and I was reflecting, talking to someone, how I feel like that's even my own like protector part, that's like not allowing me to drop down into the felt sense of what it is in my own life, in my,
Yeah.
with my own trauma, or like, because that happens with my dad too. And it's like, oh yeah, I want to try and fix, because it's so hard to just be with him, as he is. But that, yeah, like I just so related to it. But I do feel like even my own, yeah, the figuring out and manager, that's like, if we do, this and this, it's like, oh, then it's like, if I drop down, because that's where the feelings are, and that's where it gets like deep and heavy. So yeah, I just had to plug that in.
Right. What we do with others, we do with ourselves. So I guess that makes, we're codependent with ourselves, which doesn't make any sense at all. But yeah, it's like we can't tolerate our own feelings, and so we try to think our feelings away. I mean, this is the most common thing we do, and it's actually one of the ways that we make our feelings worse and worse. When you have a bad feeling, and so if you're this topic is kind of in that book, The Mindful Way Through Depression, where they talk about, if you go into problem solving with your own feelings, then what you're doing is you are, um, how do they talk about it? In any case, you're setting up a conflict within your own mind. There's what I'm feeling, and there's what I think I should be feeling, and I think that if I figure it out, I'll be able to like drag my feelings over to be the way they should be. But of course, I can't do that. So what happens is that I start feeling bad about the fact that I'm having the feelings, and then I'm think more about it, and then it just turns into this thing, which is one of the ways we get depressed, because we just keep fighting with what's going on in our own mind and wanting it to be different. And when it's not different, we just fight some more, and that triggers more painful feelings, because we feel bad about our failure to be different from the way we are, or we feel bad about feeling bad. Right? Very common thing. I feel bad about feeling bad. I shouldn't feel this way. What's wrong with me that I feel this way? That's feeling bad about feeling bad, judging myself for feeling bad. Like, wow, that's really helpful. That's going to definitely get me out of it, you know. Just keep beating yourself up until you just beat yourself into submission, you know, beat your feelings into submission. Or as the Buddha says, crush mind with mind. I don't think that's what he had in mind. But so yeah, this counterintuitive response, which is the wise response, which is love the feelings, you know. Oh, wow, I'm feeling this pain. Wow, that's really hard. It's painful. It hurts. Oh, wow. How can I be kind to myself, you know? What would make me feel better, you know? Um, mm. I know. Let me book a tea time. Okay, sorry. That's just that's the theme for the night. The worst thing though is when you go out and then you have a bad round of golf. Then you're really in trouble because it's like you were going to fix yourself with golf and that didn't work. So it's like, you know, if I could just get in a relationship and then you get in a bad relationship, or you know, anyway, if I could just get a job and then you have to go to work. Life is difficult, you know, it's complicated. It's a lot of problems to solve and it's late. So thank you all for hanging out and laughing. Blessings.